Okay, so it's 100 degrees in New York, but videos got to get done. So, all right. So today I just want to talk about my journey with rereading my not chapter, my first draft, and my process of moving into my second draft. As I'm reading through my first draft, I'm realizing that focusing on your feelings is way better than focusing on your thoughts. And that's really because as you read into the chapters, I noticed that some chapters made me feel positive. Of course, like I'm like, damn, I really cooked right here. Some made me feel negative, like like what am I writing right now? You know what I mean? And some just made me neutral. It's like this is okay, right? Like this is just passable. And I feel like, of course, it's great to have a positive, like, oh my God, this is amazing. But honestly, I think it's better to have a negative emotion about a chapter than a neutral reaction to a chapter. And here's why. Listen, it's because when you have a negative reaction to a chapter, you tend to have an idea of what's wrong with the chapter. You understand why it's kind of bad or why it's not as up to par as you have it with the other chapters. You get an understanding of why right away. It comes to you quickly, right? So you get an understanding of which area you need to fix and what needs improvements in the next draft, right? But when it comes to the neutral zone, it's sort of passable and you're not really too sure what needs fixing, and it's like, oh, it's okay, like, like it really stems from not really having an idea of how to make improvements, but at the same time, you don't really find it as bad to where you don't feel like improvements might be too necessary. You might see that improvements could be made, but since you're unsure, it's like it's passable in a sense. So that's why I believe it's better to have a negative reaction to a chapter than a neutral reaction to a chapter, because especially if you have like too many chapters, because of course not all chapters is going to be grand slam amazing, right? For the most part. But we strive for it anyways. Like you want to strive for it. But for the most part, not all chapters is going to be like that. But you want to avoid having too many chapters stuck in this flatline neutral zone for too long. If you think about it in a reader's perspective, would you rather them to feel neutral, or would you rather them feeling like negative, like, having a negative reaction to a chapter? Me personally, I rather have them hate the chapter than be neutral about a chapter. Well, okay, let's say this one to one. If it's just one chapter, right? I'd rather them to be neutral. But if it's on a span of like a 5 chapter run in like the middle of the story, let's say chapter 10 to 15, it's just like neutral versus it being like negative reaction, like negativity from the audience, like they hate these chapters. I'd rather them being negative than them being neutral for those chapters, because like the chapters being neutral for an audience, that's just boredom. That's literally boredom. Like literally, that's how readers drop a story and just stop reading. If you give them a reaction, even if it's negative, at least give you a shot of like them continuing the story. Because when it comes to emotions, like people are intrigued by what they're triggered by, whether it's positive or negative, right? And and even if they experience negative emotions, they most likely will continue reading the story just to see if it's going to get any worse, or maybe they hate a certain character, just to see the downfall of a character, or if there's going to be improvements to the character, or there's going to be improvements to the story. There's hate watch for a reason. There's a reason why that's very popular. There's a reason why cancel culture was very popular and existed like a few years ago, right? There's a reason why negativity like grabs attention in the first place. So that's why I say it's better to have negative emotions. You having negative emotions to a story, or your audience having negative emotions to a chapter, than like it being neutral in a sense. So keep that in mind, because that's what's really helping me right now. Like wherever I'm like literally stuck at, or not stuck, but I'm like disappointed, or like, damn, this needs changing. I'm literally writing notes in real time. I'm like, this is my process right here. I have a reaction. I'm reading through a chapter. I'm like, okay, this is cool, 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 cool. Whoa, why is this there? I literally stop right there, write my initial thoughts, what needs fixing, why I feel this way. Is it a certain line? Is it based on a character's decision? Like what's making me feel this way? And then what type of changes or what I'm thinking about in the moment that could be improved. But here's another key thing as well. Speaking more about positive emotions and how you feel like a positive reaction, like, damn, I'm cooking. This is like the best dialogue, the best conversation I've ever written in my lifetime. Even with those, I'm also writing down, like, this is great. This is good. I'm writing down comments, just like reminding myself that these are parts that I really, really liked as I'm rereading the story. Almost like I'm like a self proclaimed beta reader. Like I'm beta reading for myself in a sense. That's essentially what's going on. It's like, okay, I really like this part, and I'm also explaining the reason why too. Like, I like it for this reason, that reason, because you know what I mean. Especially as a writer who tends to be an overthinker at times, you don't want to go back to certain parts that you liked in the past, and then you're like, why did I like this in the first place? Like, you want to at least have some type of like journal entry of like why you kept certain parts of the story, just so that your future self don't just erase it like suddenly just because they had like a, I don't know, like a, not an inspiration, but just like a, something triggers us to just change everything in a sense, so I do that when I have positive reactions too. So that's really what's been helping me for the most part, and that's been my strategy for rereading my first draft and prepare myself for the second draft. A key tip I want to mention as well is meditation. Before I start rereading my first draft, I stare at the wall, I look at the ceiling, I take some deep breaths, I do absolutely nothing, and yeah, I'm just calming my mind, just mentally preparing my mind to just read the story as if I'm just a reader and not the author himself. And I think meditation is the quickest way, or it's the best practice to practice the art of detachment. And I think that's going to be really key when it comes to editing your drafts, when it going through that process, the art of detachment, because you just see the lens outside of yourself, and you need that. That's very important because you be attached to these characters, attached to these scenes, like all these ideas. And, you got to learn how to let go. Like some of us, it's easy for us to let go of ideas, and we just scratch everything and just reset. We love hitting the reset button, but yet there's also others that are so attached to ideas that they just don't know how to let ideas go when it's not cooking, like it's not doing its part, right? So yeah, just practicing meditation and the art of detachment is also really helping me with this process as well. And yeah, that's really been my thought process and what's helping me out in my first draft. That's all I wanted to share for the most part and make this video for you guys. And hopefully this resonate with you when this helps you as you go over your first draft and you're preparing yourself to start writing your second draft. So yeah, hope this video helps. If you need assistance with your first draft or your outlining phase and you need some suggestions, some questions, well, I ask you questions to provide clarity, as well as my reactions, whether positive or negative, to give feedback. You could click the link down below so they could book a consultation call with me. We could talk about your story, see what improvements needs to be made. And yeah, you can watch a video here or there explaining my consultation calls. But yeah, I appreciate you anyways for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'm gonna take this shirt off. Seriously. Thank you.